Well, Nintendo have done it again, dropping another announcement out of nowhere with the reveal of Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity. Whereas the previous Hyrule Warriors was an homage to the entire series, this new game acts as a direct prequel to The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. As a result, it could well address one of the biggest complaints about Breath of the Wild, and in the process, make that iconic game even better. Greetings everyone, welcome to Nintendo Village, my name's Phil, thanks for joining us. In this video, I'm going to explain not only why Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity looks awesome, but how it can elevate Breath of the Wild to be even better, and towards the end of the video, what it may mean for the sequel. So be sure to watch till the end for that. Thanks for clicking on this video, I hope you enjoy it, and if you do consider subscribing to help the channel continue to grow and so we can make some more. And as always, thanks for coming back if you're already subbed, we really appreciate your support. Without further ado, let's get into it. So yes, Eiji Aonuma softened the blow of no update for the Breath of the Wild sequel, and probably no chance of seeing it till next year, by revealing a prequel. Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity may well be a Musou Warriors game, but Nintendo's video revealed that developer Koei Tecmo have been working incredibly closely with Aonuma and his team in order to get the look, feel, dialogue, and most importantly, the story spot on. There's no denying that visually it certainly lines up with the aesthetic of Breath of the Wild, but it's that story element that's most intriguing. For me, as phenomenal an experience as Breath of the Wild was, it did fall down in one key area, and that was the story. Don't get me wrong, the story was there. If you took the time to explore, reading things like The King's Diary in Hyrule Castle, and rewatched all of the memories in order before taking on Ganon, it did reveal that there was a pretty solid plot underpinning the game. It's been long documented how Breath of the Wild broke with the conventions of the Zelda series, ditching traditional linear dungeons with key items in favour of an open world in which you can go anywhere at any time, full of disposable weapons. But another departure that doesn't really get mentioned is the change from being a narrative-driven experience. People love Zelda for a whole host of different reasons, but for me, it was always the lore and the story that made it so captivating, even if the timeline is a mess. As incredibly compelling as the gameplay was in Breath of the Wild, and as great as the world building was, I missed having that story element driving things forward, especially given the setup of previous entries in the series. My love of Zelda started with Ocarina of Time, and much of that was down to the world and mythology it built, the Triforce, goddesses and so on. That continued with Wind Waker, and the way it called back to Ocarina made the experience incredibly memorable. When Twilight Princess arrived, I barely touched a side quest on my first playthrough because I was so engrossed in the main plotline. And as much as Skyward Sword gets a bad rep because of its controls, it was easily the most cinematic Zelda game of the lot. Link's pursuit of Zelda in that game, the desire to reunite with her, really drove the game forward and made for some of the series' most captivating iterations of some of its key characters. Breath of the Wild, conversely, drove you forward through the desire for exploration, and it's something it did superbly. Every aspect of that map was meticulously crafted to entice you to abandon whatever you were doing and go and check out that thing on the horizon. But this was done at the cost of abandoning, or at the very least sidelining, the more story-driven elements. Again, I loved Breath of the Wild, but when I got to the end I did feel like it was missing what had always made Zelda special to me. And now we have Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity. And I am hyped! I was never really into the first Hyrule Warriors. The short time I had with the game left me cold, even if all the nods and Easter eggs were cool. But with Age of Calamity seemingly being totally story driven, it looks like it will fill that gap that Breath of the Wild left. To understand why, let's take a look at Persona 5 Scramble. Whilst it obviously includes the Musou style combat that the Warriors series is famed for, it is, more or less, a full-on sequel to Persona 5, and those that have played it have found this far more to the experience than simply hacking away at waves of enemies. From what we've seen so far, Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity could well follow a similar format. I'm massively encouraged not only by the fact that Nintendo and Aonuma apparently approached Koei Tecmo with the idea, but that they've worked so closely to nail the look, feel and yes, backstory of Breath of the Wild. Moreover, both the trailers and official listings on Nintendo's own game pages put a lot of emphasis on the story aspect of the game. The Nintendo UK page even makes a point of calling out in-depth storytelling as a key feature of the game. This really excites me, and with Breath of the Wild now essentially being the middle act of a trilogy, which I am dubbing the Calamity Trilogy. Link's journey through that game, I think, will now carry so much more weight once we've experienced the trials and despair of the Great Calamity. It also raises some interesting questions about the sequel. Aonuma noted at the beginning of the Age of Calamity video how his team are hard at work to, and I quote, "make the vast world you enjoyed exploring in the original game even more impressive." That would seem to indicate that the map we'll be exploring in the Breath of the Wild sequel is largely the same one we explored in the first game, albeit with some changes and additions. If that's the case, they're going to need to give us a compelling reason to keep exploring, and without the amnesia angle to sustain it, we could well be looking at a narrative-driven experience to close out the Calamity Trilogy. That Breath of the Wild sequel trailer certainly suggested that the game's plot is centred around Link and Zelda trying to find the origins of the Calamity, Ganondorf by the looks of things, and things going pear-shaped from there. I don't know about you, but that sounds like an awesome premise for the follow-up, and playing through that after experiencing first-hand in detail the emergence of Calamity Ganon, and then Link's subsequent quest to vanquish it, because let's face it, we're all replaying Breath of the Wild once we finish Hyrule Warriors, should make that Breath of the Wild sequel even more climactic. I'm so excited. Let me know what you think down in the comments. I'm keen to hear your thoughts on how you think this whole Calamity trilogy will play out, and on how Hyrule Warriors will affect the experience. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, we've got tons of other cool stuff here for you to enjoy, and be sure to subscribe to the channel to stay up to date with all of our weekly uploads. Don't forget to check out thenintendovillage.com for more Nintendo news, reviews, features, podcasts, and all that cool stuff. Thank you very much again for watching. I'll catch you all next time.